the vectors A is equal to pi plus 3j and b, which is equal to 2i plus qj, are such that a dot b, or the dot product of a and b, is 7, where p is less than 0. The unit vector in the direction of a is minus 0.8i plus tj. Find the value of p, q, and t. So the first statement we've been given is the dot product of a and b. So we know that when you multiply this by this, you should get a 7. So let's do that so that we have our first equation. So you can say a dot b, which is equal to pi plus 3j in brackets dot 2i plus qj, and this is equal to 7. So to multiply vectors, you just multiply the i's by the i's, the j's and the j's, because I is perpendicular to j. When you multiply them, and when you multiply two perpendicular vectors rather, you get a 0. So you can say this times this, you have a 2p. That's basically a 2p squared, but because I squared is just 1, so you have a 2p. And then 3j multiplied by qj, you have 3qj, which is equal to 7. So this will be your first equation. And then to find your other equation or equations, you can use this information here. So using the second statement, which says the unit vector in the direction of a is this, we can we know that a is this. A is equal to pi plus 3j. So you can just find the unit vector in the direction of this. In other words, find a vector using this which has a magnitude of 1. So to do that, you can just say the unit vector in the direction of a is given by, you get the vector itself, pi plus 3j, and then you divide it by its magnitude. So the magnitude of a is, you square this, that's p squared plus 3 squared. So this is your magnitude. Of course, these two are unlike terms, so you can't add them. So you have a squared is, cap a is equal to pi plus 3j everything over p squared plus 3 squared is 9. And then we know that the unit vector in the direction of a is minus 0.8i plus tj. So you can just equate this to minus 0.8i plus tj. And then you can get two equations from this by separating the I components from the j components. So I'll do it step by step. So pi over the square root of p plus 9, you can even put your I there, and then plus 3 over the square root of p squared plus 9j. So since these two vectors are equal to each other, the I components must be equal on both sides. So this must be the same as this. In other words, the coefficient of I, which is this, must be the same as that. The coefficient of j, which is this, must be the same as that. So let's just write that mathematically. We're saying p over the square root of p squared plus 9 is equal to 0.8, like that. This is your second equation. And then your third equation will be, by the way, this is a 9, not a q. I think I got mixed up at one point. It's a 9. So now you can solve for p using this. As you can see, we only have a p here. So once you find your p, you can use it here to find your t, and then you can use this one to find your q. So to solve for my p, I can just cross multiply, or maybe I can square both sides like that before I cross multiply. Either ways you still get it right. So this will be p squared over, when you square this, you just eliminate the square root, and this will be 0.64 like that. Then you can cross multiply now, so that you have p squared is equal to this times this, 0.64 p squared, plus 9 times, I don't have my calculator, so 64 by 9, that's 36, and then by 6 we have 54, plus 3, 54 plus 3, we have 57. So this is like 5.76. yeah, and then we can just take this one to the other side, so that we have p squared minus 0.64 p squared is equal to 5.76. And then when you subtract these two, you have that should be 0.36, yeah, squared is equal to 5.76. And then you can divide both sides by this. Let me do it from this side. So dividing both sides by 0.36, this will give us p squared is equal to 5.76 over 0.36. And then if you have your calculator, just divide these two numbers, but because I don't have one, you can just do it from here. So my p will be plus or minus the square root of this is like 576, which is the square root of 24, so it's 2.4. And then this is like 36, so the square root of this should be 0.6. Yes, so that means your p is plus or minus this into this, that should be a 4. So that's your p. But of course, I think we had the condition. Yes, we've been told that p is less than 4 as 0. So that means your p is equal to -4. And then now you can use this equation to solve for t. So to do that, you can just say 3 over the square root of p is a 4, a -4, squared plus 9. This is equal to t. And then you have 3 over, this will be 16 plus 9, which will be 3 over the square root of 25, which will be 3 over 5. So this is your t. And then to find your q, yeah, we found our t is 3 over 5, and then p is -4. So to find your q, you can just use this equation. You can say 2p is -4 plus 3q is 7. So this by this, you have -8 plus 3q is 7. Take this one to the other side. You have 3q is equal to 7 plus 8, which is 15. When you divide both sides by 3, you have q is equal to 5, and you're done.